Hi guys,
Hi guys.
welcome to another faction focus by Glasshammer Gaming. We have had a lot of requests to do Adepta Sororitas actually, like 3 or 4 requests within a week. So, here is your wish. Today, we are reviewing Adepta Sororitas.
Okay.
Right guys, just before we start, if you want to hit that subscribe button and notifications bell just below Aaron there so you know each time we release one of these videos. And also if you enjoy our content, you'd like more exclusive content, amazing discounts off our web store, or if you like what we do here at Glasshammer and you'd just like to support the channel, then please head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. Right, let's get straight into it then. Faction focus, Adepta Sororitas. Lately they have been doing quite well, so I see why a lot of people, like on the tournament scene, they're doing quite well. And I see why a lot of people wanted, the request of it because maybe they're not, understanding exactly why Sisters are doing so well right now. And, it'd be good to go through that. Standard format, guys. Massive mug of tea over here.
Coffee.
Massive mug of coffee over there. We're just chilling, talking about Sisters and why they're doing quite well right now. So, first things first, Aaron.
Yes.
Why do you think they're doing well in the scene right now? Like in the meta right now, why do you think some players are doing well? And it is like select players. Like if you look at Alliance Open, there was Guillaume.
Yeah, Guillaume did very well.
Dessoir. He did really well actually. He was right up there until like the semi-final final rounds. He was one of the undefeated players going into the final day. Then he only lost in the last day after going 5-0.
Yes,
is the only time he started losing after that. So he did very, very well with his Sisters. Why do you think currently in the meta they're doing so?
So I think Sisters are really interesting because they have very good secondaries as the first thing, and their secondaries are very passive as well. There's low interactivity on their secondaries, which is something that in the game right now a lot of our other armies don't have. Right? If we look at their secondaries, which we'll get to, all 3 of them really that we see some people taking, or at least 2 of them, they can be scored regardless of what the opponent can really do.
Yes.
It's very hard to stop their scoring, which I think right now in the meta, being able to have access to that, we see it with Necrons, we see it with other armies, is a very powerful thing for Sisters to have.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, because I feel like a lot of armies right now do rely on killing to get quite a few of their points. For example, if you look at the meta, the armies at the top, Thousand Suns. Yeah. Probably one of the only ones that don't have to rely on killing,
which makes them so good.
And Harlequins.
Yeah.
Right? If you're looking at the top of the meta, Harlequins and Thousand Suns are probably the only 2 up there that don't have to rely on killing you to score their points. Because like Thousand Suns can, for example, take a psychic secondary, which they can make undeniable.
Yep.
So they will usually max that out or get close to max points on that. Banners, they're usually very good at raising 2 and defending them because even their Terminators are obsec. The Rubrics and Terminators are all fearless and stuff like that. So usually they can score 10 plus on banners as well. And then they have an option for the last one. They can take Sorcerer's Prowess to kill you if they need to. Or they can take like Wrath of Magnus if you've taken a Psyker. That's like a gift for them.
Yep.
Which a lot of top armies do have a Psyker in them right now. Or they can play like Engage on all fronts. If you have like the triples, Angor, Enlightened units, you can start playing, and Flamers, you can start playing
like that.
Engage on all fronts really well. So Thousand Suns are very, very flexible in what they've got, and they're not relying on you to bring something to give them points. But if you do bring a Psyker, it's just giving them a massive bonus. And then Harlequins. Harlequins are great. They probably have the best selection because they are in the very fortunate situation where they have a secondary of their own, a Harlequin secondary, which partners with a regular secondary so well. Yeah. Deadly Performance and Behind Enemy Lines literally go hand in hand, right? Like, So, and Deadly Performance, guys, basically, you get 3 points in a battle round at the end of your own turn, I believe. You get 3 points at the end of your own turn if you've achieved 2 of the following 4. So if you're holding an objective that you weren't holding at the start of your turn, if you have a unit in your opponent's deployment zone, if you kill 2 units with range attacks, and now if you kill 2 units with combat, they've changed that from 3 to 2. Yeah. So 2 with shooting or 2 with melee attacks, and then be in your opponent's deployment zone and hold an objective you weren't holding. If you do any 2 of those, you get 3 points. Now the easiest ones, of course, to do those is hold an objective you weren't holding at the start of your turn, and then being in your opponent's deployment zone. But then also you can take behind enemy lines to be in your opponent's deployment zone. So Harlequins have a great one, which is uninteractive. They don't really need to kill you or anything to do any of these. They can get points for both secondaries by just going into your deployment zone and holding an objective. And they have the speed to do it. So Harlequins are one of those as well, where their third one is, again, can be R&D because they've got speed. It can be banners because they can raise them and run at you. They've got Weave Veil. They've got so many options. I think
those are very specific armies.
Yes.
If we look at the others, we have things like you end up with Chaos Space Marines.
And this is why I'm saying I agree with you on the sisters front of the thing, because like we say, Thousand Sons and Harlequins are probably the only two at the top of the meta that don't need you to bring something to help them with the secondaries. But all the other top meta armies do.
Yeah.
However, sisters are being chucked in the mix there now because they, again, like Harlequins, like Thousand Sons, they're an army which can take 3 secondaries that don't need to interact with you. They can defend their shrine, which is holding one objective outside their deployment zone.
Yeah. Shrine is so good. It's such a good secondary.
So they can literally max out Shrine, but then partnered with Shrine, they could take banners because they'll raise one in their deployment zone on an objective, then one on the Shrine, which is just outside the deployment zone, and get like a guaranteed 10 on that if they're defending the Shrine. And then Leap of Faith for 12, guaranteed. Like, pretty much. No one can really stop Leap of Faith.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like.
So you can defend the Shrine, Leap of Faith, banners really, really well. But sometimes if you don't think banners is a great choice because you're only really going to be able to defend the Shrine and not another one, you can take Sacred Ground.
Yeah, well, you can build as we get onto it. Like Sacred Ground is a really good secondary that you can build for in your army because if you can guarantee get it, you can pretty much guarantee get 11 points.
Yeah,
and you could push for that 15, especially if you're going second. So having an army where you can get essentially 12, 10 to 15, 15 as your secondaries, just by not killing a single model, is huge.
It's absolutely massive, and that's the thing. You can do this without going for kills. You can do this reliably without going for kills. So if you can kind of stick to that, you're in a good spot, right? So I do agree with you. That's probably the main reason that they're doing so well in the meta right now, because the opponents that you're going to face, even on the top tables, other than Harlequin and Thousands, you're going to face Tau.
You're going to face Tau, yeah.
They're going to need to take a kill secondary against you somewhere.
That third secondary is always a kill for Tau.
So they're going to have to take a kill somewhere. Emperor's Children. Yeah. Again, they play against sisters. They're going to have to take a kill somewhere. Yeah. Right? They're going to have to.
Creations of Bile play a kill.
They play a kill. That's it. Creations of Bile, Emperor's Children, Tau, they all play for kills. Votan
coming out now.
Votan secondaries terrible.
At least 2 kills sometimes,
Because their secondaries are terrible.
They are so bad, secondaries.
Right? And the other one, right up there, I think the only other one that's like right up there is Demons.
I would say Demons, yeah.
Demons. But Demons will have Reality Rebels, whereas you will have Defend the Shrine. So the Demons will get 15 on Reality Rebels, you'll get 15 on Defend the Shrine. The Demons will also then get like 10 on banners, and you'll get like 10 on banners. Say that's
third one. It's hard.
It's that third one.
Yeah.
Nourished by Terror is a great one.
Yeah.
For Demons, but again, that relies on them coming to you to kill you. But your third one is going to be Leap of Faith, which you're going to get 12 on. So they're going to need to try and match that with their third secondary.
Yeah, and that means they're going to put the pressure on you.
That's where it gets hard.
Sisters, especially certain sisters, can really respond to pressure very well.
Yes, because this is the thing. You might think, well, actually, if you've got the 12 on Leap of Faith, you don't have any Psychers, but the Demons could take a Psychic secondary and match you by getting 12 on Warp Ritual. So you might think that, right? And this is where sisters are coming in quite key right now, because we mentioned, even with the Thousand Sons, that loads of armies are taking Psychers, at least 1 or 2 Psychers in there, right? Because they help for the functionality of the army, or they give you access to a Psychic secondary, which can get you 12 to 15 points. Now, if you do that against sisters, you could be in a lot of trouble, because they can deny on a 6-up, right, with every unit in their army. Yeah. So they can roll 1 dice on a 6, your power's denied. So 16% of the time, it's just denied anyway. So once in a game, your Warp Ritual or Mental Interrogate will just get naturally denied. Once in a game, it should just get naturally denied. Yeah. But then they also have a CP where on a 4-up, after rolling the dice to deny on a 6, they can roll 1 dice on a 4-up, it's denied.
So now it's a 6 by a 4. Right?
Exactly. So unless you're Thousand Sons that can make your, your psychic action undeniable, you're going to get denied.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, and that hurts a lot.
And that's before
that hurts a lot.
That's assuming you don't even take Aegis of the Emperor, which would then make your denies on a 5-er. So if you're playing an army that has a lot of casts, things like Thousand Sons, you could really actually harper them quite a bit, because you could
I think so.
you could deny a third of every single power that they're casting, and then one that you really want to stop, that they haven't made undeniable, on a 4-up, you stop it after that. So, Sisters, assuming right now that we're seeing a lot of Psychers, both in Demons and Chaos Space Marines, having important powers they want to cast and everything. Even still slivers of Tyranids, with Kraken now, they want to have that advance and charge on Raveners and stuff. Being able to deny that with just your army trait, having that is really powerful.
Yeah, so I think that's why they're doing so well.
Yeah.
The secondary, the fact that they could take 3, that's what they're doing so well. Now, let's have a look at the convictions that are doing so well. So what we're going to do, because we've been requested to have a look at some regiment / chapters that people don't really use very often, and see what we could do with those. But of course, we're going to start off with the ones that are doing well and why they're doing well. So Bloody Rose.
Bloody Rose
is the one that pretty much everybody is playing on top tables. That's the one we're seeing, right?
Yeah, Bloody Rose is very powerful. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of armies do well that have Arm of Contempt. Yeah. We're looking at things like Thousand Suns, Chaos Space Marines, all these armies, even other Sisters, that have access to Arm of Contempt. Bloody Rose, essentially, every time that you charge, word charge or perform a heroic intervention, so the first round of combat, you get +1 attack and +1 AP on your fighting. Having the extra attack is obviously really good, especially with so many good combat units in Sisters, but having the extra AP is huge.
Yeah.
Essentially, negating Arm of Contempt with that first charge, and then whatever you have on your profile being used is really, really strong.
Yes, I totally agree with that, man. Having the extra AP, getting round Armor of Contempt is massive.
Yeah, so I think...
But that's not all they get.
That's not all.
They get another attack as well. They get +1 attack on the charge, or when they get charged as well. Now, that's huge, because now not only are you doing more damage than other Sisters' orders, because you're ignoring Armor of Contempt, essentially, like ignoring it and using the AP on your profile, like Aaron said, but you're also getting more attacks than any of the Sisters' order there is as well.
With every unit, right?
With every unit in your army.
We look at things like Novitiates. Novitiates are an interesting unit, because normally Novitiates, in any other conviction, are just a chaff, little unit that's a bit more expensive than Battle Sister units, not too much. But when you give them +1 attack, and you give them extra AP, and then the buffs you can put on them, like the prayers and everything, they actually become quite a solid unit.
They can get like 50 attacks in Bloody Rose, and it's only a 70-point unit.
Exactly. And we can see that with so many of the units, Repentia, Zephyrim, the combat characters, all of these units just gaining so much more just from being Bloody Rose.
For sure.
Then with Bloody Rose as well, you get access to the Tear Them Down stratagem, which is 6s to hit auto wound in the fight phase for 1 CP. Amazing on things like Repentia, that reroll to hit when they fight.
Yes, 6s to auto wound when a unit like that really is amazing. Especially if you've taken like the Passion, for example. Then every 6 to hit auto wounds, and then gives you an explosion. Of course, you have to roll to wound with the exploding one. But if, for example, they go in there and you've got a unit of 8 Repentia, they've got 24 attacks. Mm-hmm. If you've done Warhammer on them, they've got 32 attacks. Now, say they've got 32 attacks, and this was no support. Say you used no rerolls to hit and wound buff from Val, no +1 to wound from your Repentia Superior.
Just their Zealot.
They've just got +1 attack and they've run off, right?
Yeah.
So if you just use their Zealot ability and then you pop this 1 CP for 6s to hit auto wound, it's massive. Like, you're gonna roll 32 dice and you're gonna hit with 16 of them, but then you're going to get about 5 6s on that first roll. Then you're gonna re-roll the 16 misses and get another 8 hits. Because you're already -1, so no one can affect you any further. So then you're going to get another 8 hits, and 3 more of those would be auto-wounding. So when you look at that and you go, well, that's only 8. Like, out of 32 attacks, that's only 8 6s in total. But 8 6s auto-wounding means you're taking 8 wounds at -4 AP flat 2 damage. Yeah. So that's like 16 damage worth of attacks that have just auto-wounded.
And then obviously because you have the Passion, those auto wounds, those hits go back into the pool and then go back into the wounding stage.
Yeah, because the way you've got to look at it is it's 8 additional.
Yep.
So what I mean by that is you've normally taken the Passion, so you've got exploding 6s, right? So every 6 to hit will give you an auto wound, but then it will also add 1 dice to your attacks again to roll to wound with. Now, when you're rolling 32 dice, you should get 16 hits. Then re-rolling them all, another 8. So you should get 24 hits, but we've got roughly 8 6s. So that means you'll have 32 hits rolling to wound. So you started with 32 attacks, and now you've ended up with 32 hits and 8 auto
8
wounds on
wounds.
top. So you've gone to 40 attacks all of a sudden,
Yep.
right? Then those 32 are rolling to wound, and they are strength 6. They are strength 6. So let's say we're hitting something really tough, like an Imperial Knight, right?
So you're wounding on
We're
5s.
wounding on 5s. So out the 32 hits that we were rolling to wound with now, we should only get 10 more, right? But 10 plus the 8 we've already had, that's 18 wounds.
At -4?
At -4, where most vehicles don't get a
Get
save against that.
Maybe they get a 6-up if they have a
And
2-up
they're 2
armor.
damage each.
That's a dead knight.
It's 36 damage.
That's a dead
It's
knight.
a dead knight and a half.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
From
punch
an
you can get.
8-girl unit of adventure and 1 CP.
With no rerolls to wound and no
Just 1 CP.
+1 to wound, right? Like just 1 CP. That's I think that's pretty
That's
damn
huge,
awesome.
right?
Yeah.
The last thing on the page as well is the Blazing Eye Warlord trait. Just want to
Oh,
quickly
yeah.
talk about that. So it adds 1 to the attack characteristic of a Warlord. It's a Warlord trait. And allows the Warlord to advance and charge. You can build a very strong Canoness in Bloody Rose, giving her a choice between the Blade of Saint Eleanor for a flat 3 lesser
damage
blade, or you can give, I think, the Chaplet of Sacrifice some people give as well. But once you give them extra attacks on top of the Bloody Rose attacks, and then the ability to advance and charge as well. Remember, we got miracle dice here, so we can auto advance 6, and then we can auto charge on miracle dice. You can create like a really strong combat character.
Yeah, really
Bloody
strong
Rose.
combat character, but not also just that. They can also have the Word of the Emperor upgrade put on them, where they can turn invulnerables off in an aura around them
Yes.
in the command phase. Then they can advance. Then they can charge to make sure that the maximum amount of units get into their aura and lose their invulnerable
So they
saves.
can help things like Repentia or
Yeah.
Zephyrim ignore.
Now
invulnerables.
Repentia go in there and they hit something like Terminators. All of a sudden they do the same thing. They go, "There's 36 saves, 18 to 20 saves, but now you don't have an invulnerable, and I'm -4.
Yeah.
So even if you're armor contempt, I'm -3, and put your Terminators on 5-up saves.
Yeah, so even if they had a 4-up involved from something, especially in Receiving 1,000 Suns or something like getting in the 4-up involved, they wouldn't have that. Weaver of Fates doesn't count because you just ignore it, and then you just hit them straight on their 5.
Yeah.
So really powerful having that Word of the Emperor upgrade tooled in with Advance and Charge.
I think so, for sure. So yeah, you can make an awesome Canoness that can really impact how much damage you do as a Sisters player, which I think is key, because a lot of your units in Sisters are like Glasshammer units, Glasshammer units, in terms of they hit like a hammer, but they fall like glass. Like they just shatter. They
anything
go over
T3,
so quickly.
you're gonna die quickly.
Yeah, they die to a stiff breeze. So essentially, you're going in there to try to get the most out of each unit that you can, because you want to try and hit something, hopefully slightly above your own points, so that when they kill you back, which they probably will, then at least you've traded up. And I think that's one thing that Sisters really excel at is the trade game. They trade up very well.
Yes.
Because the units are actually very cheap. Like, for example, we talked about these units that are like 8 Repentia, for example. Now, Repentia are like, 14 points?
A model? Yeah.
Something like that, right? So it's 140 points for like 10 of them. But you take 28 points off that and you're at 112. It's like an 8-man Repentia unit that we've just established can kill a knight for 1 CP.
Cheaper than a unit of Demonettes.
Yes. It's 112 points.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn bonkers. That's value.
That's
like, if you don't think
value.
that's value, I
just
don't know what
kill
you're going to think is
1.5
value.
knights.
Yeah.
Here, you know?
And another unit that's key, like another unit that excels with Bloody Rose, is Zephyrim.
Yeah.
An 8 Zephyrim, which can move 12 and then charge, or deep strike in and then charge when you've got miracle dice.
So you'll make that charge.
If you put rerolls to hit and wound on a unit of 8 Zephyrim with the +1 attack, and then rerolls to hit and wound from Morgan Val and send them in, they will pick up pretty much most things in the game.
Yeah.
And that unit's 120 as well. Like,
they're so cheap.
points.
That's one thing with Sisters. They are so cheap for what they do. Things like Repentia, Zephyrim, even weaker units, things like Seraphim that maybe you don't see to be too strong. They're 12 points a model, right? These Sisters are very, very cheap for what you get. And as you say, they punch above their weight every single time.
Yeah, so if you can get in there and you can trade well, that's where Sisters excel, right? Now, the strength here is that the units are cheap enough to cram in 7 or 8 trading piece units.
Yeah.
So when you have that amount of trading ability, I think it's fantastic, right?
This is one of the things that makes Sisters so powerful. We've already talked about how you can sit back and play defensive. And in a lot of games, that will just get you the win. If your opponent plays defensive and so do you, you will just win. Because you have better secondaries. But if your opponent puts the pressure on because they realize, if I sit back, I'm not going to win this game, they will send units at you. But then you can trade up, you can counter them, and you can make them pay for it with units that will kill anything they send at you. So it becomes a very interesting game playing into Sisters because you can't sit back. But if you go and try and run at them, they can respond and they will hurt you hard. Yeah. Which I think really helps if you go Bloody Rose. That really just all goes together with what you want to do.
Yeah. However, I do want to say, in my opinion, obviously I might be wrong. In my opinion, because we should talk about the tier. You know, the tier.
Oh, we will look and
where we want them in the tier. Now, in my opinion, Sisters. So Bloody Rose the strongest, right, guys? Like, we're going to talk about a few other convictions, a few other orders.
We've had obviously some comments to look at some of the other ones as well, so we will.
However, Bloody Rose the strongest, right? So we want to look at the strongest one and see where they come on the tier list. Now, in my opinion, they are... Actually, let's say your opinion, Aaron. Where do you think they are on the tier list? So obviously, we have, like, the S tier, A tier, and then B, C tier. Yeah, factions.
So I think Sisters are a low A tier. I'd say they are low A tier.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said that because I feel like they're B tier.
Okay.
I feel like Sisters are B tier. Low A/B is about right? So I think that is about where they come. Now, why do you think that, Aaron?
So I think that the only armies that I would see as being A tier, minus a couple of exceptions, need their own good secondaries. So the only exception for me personally to be on the A tier is like Chaos Space Marines. I'd even put Tyranids on B tier now. Because I think all the other armies up there need to have at least one of their own secondaries to push up. And I think
there is one that we forgot, guys. There is an A tier army that we forgot to mention. It's right up there with the good secondaries.
What Knights?
What's the army that has the best secondaries?
Oh, Necrons.
Necrons.
Yeah, but Necrons. Necrons are only there because of their secondaries now. If you look at win rates with Necrons, it's really funny. People were looking at the Silent Kingdom, even me, and going, "Oh, that doesn't change much." Their win rate has plummeted because they can't take a lot of pressure anymore. They're only there for the secondaries. Whereas I think something like Sisters have still very good secondaries, but they can still pack a big punch. So the reason I put them in low A tier is because they are propped up by their secondaries. Their secondaries are very good, but I think that being T3, there are still a lot of armies that can pick them up quite easily. You talked about things like Tau, things like armies that can get round walls and get into them and kill them. I mean, these Repentia, even when you can have them off the board, you can have them in the Rhino, but anything that's on the board can just be picked up very quickly. Things like Tau Planes. I think if you play Tau into Sisters without planes, I think it is favored for the Sisters. But as soon as you put the planes in there, I think bombing them, coming down, shooting, I think
they can kill so much, right?
There's so much
because of how brittle they are.
Because
right?
Yeah, they have Armor of Contempt, they can sit on cover, but ultimately their T3 one wound models, they will just die.
If you can teleport around the board like Thousand Suns, you can get angles to be able to see them and shoot them from 30 inches away by increasing the range of your bolters.
As we said, okay, you can teleport a unit of Thousand Suns, and they can maybe deny your powers. But then here's all these warp bolters, here's all these warp flamers, here's these regular 25-point Tzeentch flamers, and there's a unit of Sisters gone for one flamer. Yeah. And it's things like that where it's like, to an extent, they cannot be at the top because there are some armies that just will stop them.
Yeah, I agree with you because this is the thing as well, right, guys? Is remember how we said in the last one that the main thing that determines like how good an army is in a meta is the terrain. Right?
Yeah.
Now, our terrain over here is UKTC terrain, right?
Mm-hmm.
So our tier list is based on the UKTC.
Yes.
Right? Now, of course, if you play on like WTC terrain, where a lot of the ruins are blocked, then the Sisters will do a bit better. However, like
there
on the UKTC boards, the ruins that you use to stage up the board. Now, Sisters need staging ruins. They need to be able to go from one ruin to the next, be safe there, and then hit.
Yeah.
Right? Because they can't just go 24 and charge. That's not a thing. They're not Harlequins, So they have to be able to move 10 or 11 inches into a safe ruin in the middle of the board. Then from there, catapult out, right? But all the staging ruins that you have on UKTC terrain are all bottom levels open. There are all windows on the bottom floor. So if you go and stand on the bases of these ruins, you can see through and you can shoot.
Yeah.
Right? So I think there's a lot of armies right now that have the speed, like Tau.
Yeah.
Like Zinch Flamers from
exactly,
into the Thousand Sons, like Harlequins. There are a lot of armies that have the speed to go and touch those ruins and shoot whatever's behind them.
Yep.
So if you put, say, 8 Repentia behind that ruin, and then all of a sudden, a Tau unit, because this is the thing. Like Aaron's talking about the bombers, right? So you could, for example, have a unit of 8 Repentia you've pushed into that ruin, and then a unit of 8 Repentia in the ruin behind them, like 10 inches behind them, say, right? And then you have that the unit of Zephyrim, say, in your big ruin at the back of the board, right? I could then, at that point, as the Tau player, send over the 2 planes, and then send my Crisis unit forward, say.
Yep.
My Crisis unit could touch the ruin in the middle of the board where you stage your Repentia in.
Yep. They can move 18.
They can move 18. So I could go and touch that ruin that you've put your Repentia behind, wipe those Repentia out, and move 6 inches backwards.
Yep.
Right? And then my 2 planes could come over and shoot your Repentia and Zephyrim unit that you've got to set up as counterpunches further behind. And all of a sudden, you've lost a Zephyrim unit and 2 Repentia units, and now you don't have anything that can reach my Crisis unit.
Yeah. And you, as the Sisters player, you'll need to spend a turn dealing with the planes. You can't leave those planes still around.
Yeah.
That means that then we've got the Crisis unit, the Riptides, anything else at the back ready for next turn to just go forward and hit you.
And we
and
all
then you've
know
got nothing left.
that Retributors are pretty dicey.
Very swingy.
Yeah, especially if you've gone Bloody Rose and they're like, they're not that potent. But against planes, they're hitting on 4s. You're only going to get half hits. Then they're winning on like 3s. It gets very dicey.
There's 2 planes you want to deal with. If you leave one plane alive, that plane can bomb without any issue, and then shoot. 1 CP,
with +1 to hit.
And then 1 CP you get a top profile as well.
And with the amount of shots they've got, they could potentially kill 2 units. Like a plane could probably kill 2
units. You can split a drone and missile pod and a drone and seeking missiles, and you can easily split and kill 2 units.
After bombing.
You don't even need to overcharge, because unless you're shooting at something like Repentia where you want to get the damage too for the Field of Pain, Strength 7, 1 damage is enough.
Is enough against
so
you have little things like that where the fact that you can't stage in the middle ruins really hurts the Sisters quite a bit. So for that reason, they're not on A tier for me. They're on B tier for me.
Terrain is very important.
Yeah, because that tier list is done on our terrain essentially. And UKTC, I genuinely believe that they're B tier. They're B tier. But yeah, so that's the Bloody Rose. That's why they are doing well in events right now. It's with the secondaries and stuff like that. And people haven't seen Sisters in a while, so they're adapting to how to play against them as well. But we've been asked to look at other convictions, other orders, which other ones are good. Now, Dan himself, doesn't actually like Bloody Rose very often. He thinks they're too one-dimensional and don't give him enough options. So I still think they're the best. I still think Bloody Rose is the best. However, Dan prefers Martyred Lady.
Yes.
And Dan shared quite a few of his tricks with us about how the Martyred Lady work and how he's been running them, right? And of course, they have a supplement in Warzone Caradon in Book 2, the Book of Fire. So I'll open the supplement, and then Aaron, if you run us through the base things, what Martyred Lady get.
So the main thing they get for their conviction, they get two abilities. The first one is each time an attack is made with a unit that is below its starting strength, you add 1 to the hit roll. So that's very good.
That's very good.
Dan uses it as soon as you lose 1 sister in, for example, a big brick of 20, or even a unit of say 6 or 7. Take 6 or 7 retributor units, loses 1, and then the rest of the unit gets +1 to hit. Very good, very strong, especially on these shooting units. But also good in combat as well. Getting +1 to hit as soon as you lose 1 Repentia or 1 Zephyrim is also very nice. And the second thing they get really helps you with your scoring. And it's at the end of any phase, other than the morale phase, in which any of your units were destroyed, you gain 1 miracle dice. And this is in addition to the one you gain for any characters that die. So if you lose a unit in the shooting, you gain a miracle dice. If you lose a unit in the combat, you get a miracle dice. You end up getting a lot more miracle dice than any other convictions, which just helps you max out Leap of Faith.
Yeah.
Now, Leap of Faith is already quite easy to max under 12, but this just guarantees pretty much that you will max out your points. Along with getting the +1 hit is very nice. And then they also have a lot more, I think, in the Book of Fire.
The Book of Fire gives them a lot, because the main thing that they've got is one really cool strat called Death Before Disgrace. I really like this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, really like this secondary. This stratagem, because you use it at the start of your movement phase, right?
Okay.
And then you select an Order of our Martyred Lady infantry. So not like core or character like everyone's, is just infantry. Any infantry you want, right? Or a Paragon Warsuit unit.
Okay.
Right? And until the start of your next movement phase, the unit cannot fall back. It's the only drawback. They cannot fall back. However, they have the objective secure ability.
Yeah.
And if they already have objective secured, then they count as an additional model for the purposes of controlling an objective. Now, sisters struggle a little bit to play the primary game.
Mm-hmm.
So they can play the secondary game exceptionally well, but they struggle a little to play the primary game. And I think this evens it out a little, because you can, for example, put objective secured on one of your Zephyrim units, and then they can just move 12 up the board, use miracle dice to charge in, charge your opponent, wipe a unit out, and steal an objective because they're objective secured.
If you can't get primary, deny
their primary. And I feel like this stratagem really helps them deny primaries on the opponent's side. So I think that's absolutely fantastic.
For 1 CP as well. It's something you could use every turn if you really want to.
Yes.
Consistently. And
now, the only drawback, and this is something to note, guys, as well, so it doesn't get done to you, is because a lot of these things are usually done in the command phase. This is not. It says use this stratagem at the start of your movement phase. Yeah. So somebody can't go, oh, you've tried to steal my objective with 3 gargoyles. You've got 3 gargoyles on my objective, and I've got 5 sacrosants on there. So what I'll do is I'll spend 1 CP, make the sacrosants obsec, and so now I've got 8 primaries, not 4.
That doesn't work.
That doesn't work. You can't do it in the command phase. So that is something to note. So it won't really help you get your own secondaries, your own primaries, sorry.
It just helps,
but it will help you deny them.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic.
Oh, yes.
With sisters not being able to get very many of their own primaries, denying is a massive,
It definitely plays more on the objective play than Bloody Rose, I think. Playing Martyred Lady, you get a lot more objective scoring, a lot more little tactics you can do like that, compared to just having a stronger list, I think. Which is very, as you say, very important to get with an army that struggles with primary.
And I also really like Zealous Deathwish for 1 CP. Use this strat in the fight phase when an Order of our Martyred Lady unit from your army is selected to fight. Each time a model in the unit makes a melee attack against a unit that contained at least 5 more models than the attacker's unit when it was selected to fight, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. But it's the second bit that I like. For the purposes of this stratagem, vehicle models each count as 5 models. So when you play things like the Mirror, when you go into like Paragon Warsuits, they count as 15 models.
Yes.
So even if you've got like 7 Repentia, 8 Repentia, they count as more models than you. So you get +1 to the hit roll, which can be big on things like Repentia that are suffering a -1 to hit. Yeah. It can counter it out, right? So it's situational, but I like it.
It's good to have, with a lot of these situational strats. Like, there are things that you won't always use, but when you use it, it's going to really help and swing that
Because
way.
Even small units, for example, say you've got like 5 Repentia in your army, or you've got a 5 Repentia left. Quite sometimes you do want to take a unit of 5 Repentia in your army because, for example, like especially in Martyred Lady, the Dominions are really good. They can use the 1 CP to do an average of 6 more wounds to target, right? The Blessed Bolts. They just do 6 more wounds. Sometimes it's quite nice to have a Rhino that's got 5 Dominions and 5 Repentia in there. So you can fit them all in the same transport, and then you've got a shooting and a melee threat in the same vehicle, right? Now, if a 5-man unit jumps out and they go into, say, like a 10-man Terminator unit that loads of people are taking right now, having the +1 to hit could be really big. Hitting on 3s could actually really help you in some of those scenarios, right? So I do really like the Zealous Deathwish thing.
Nice.
But yeah, and then, of course, there's a load of good stratagems in the regular book.
Yes.
However, you know how we were talking about the badass Canoness?
Oh yeah.
This is my favorite thing about Martyred Lady. This is what Dan is using on his Canoness.
The badass.
Yeah, and this is my absolute favorite.
She's very cool.
She is the badass Canoness. So when we talk about the badass Canoness in Bloody Rose, and we're like, she's got Word of the Emperor, can turn off invulnerables for a turn, and then she advances and charges, and she's got loads of attacks with a flat 3 damage blade.
Yep.
Now, there's one thing better than having flat 3 damage attacks, and that's attacks that just ignore saves.
Wounds.
It's just mortal wounds, right? So, for that reason, this is the true badass Canoness, right? So, there is a Warlord trait, in the supplement for the Martyred Lady called Martyr's Strength. Now, this Warlord trait, of course, she can't advance in charge like the other one, but her Warlord trait is for each wound this Warlord has lost, add 1 to its strength and attacks characteristic, to a maximum of +2 each. So she can get to +2 strength and +2 attacks. Now, that wouldn't actually be that good if it was just natural. If you couldn't affect that yourself. If that was just natural,
she has to get
your
injured
opponent had to injure her, it wouldn't actually be that good.
Not always, no.
Now, if you can influence it, however, then it becomes pretty bonkers.
Yes.
And you can. You couple it with a relic called the Blade of Sacrifice, right? Now, it replaces her power sword. But it gives her strength +1, AP -3, and damage 1, right? So that gives her, she's what? She's strength 3. That will give her strength 4. And if she loses 2 wounds, she'll go up to strength 6.
Very
right?
nice.
Yes. And she has, I believe, 4 attacks base, a canoness. And then she can get +2 attacks for 6 attacks. Yep. So she can get 6 attacks at strength 6 with -3/1 damage, right? However, each time the bearer is selected to fight, you can channel the bearer's soul. This is the ability of the Blade of Sacrifice. If you do, the bearer loses between 1 to 2 wounds. You cannot lose more wounds than this model has remaining, so you can't kill yourself. Right? If the bearer channel their soul, then until that fight is resolved, each time an attack is made with this weapon, on a successful wound roll, the target suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the number of wounds this model lost when channeling their soul, and the attack sequence ends.
Yes.
So the damage 1 of your weapon doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Because what you can do, essentially, she cuts herself for 2 wounds. So she cuts herself, she loses 2 wounds, which means now, because she's lost 2 wounds, she gets +2 strength and attacks.
Because
right?
of a Warlord
So
trait.
she's done it herself, and that's what makes it so powerful. But now, every time she gets a successful wound roll, so not a wound that goes through your save, just a successful wound roll, you're going to take 2 mortal wounds for
Flat.
each one, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you put full rerolls to hit and wound on her from Morven Val, on a turn where you really need her to do something key, right? She's got 6 attacks.
Mm-hmm.
She's hitting on 2s rolling 1s, which should give her 7 hits
because
with
of
the
the
passion.
Yeah.
Now she's got 7 hits, right? She's strength 6 with full rerolls to wound. So if you send her into something that's toughness 4, toughness 5, like these Terminators, for example, she's going to get like 4 wounds, full reroll, 6 wounds. 6 wounds is 12 mortals.
It's not capped.
She's going to kill half a Terminator squad on her own. Yeah, it's not capped. She's going to kill an Armiger. She's going to kill so many things. She can wipe out so many things just on her own. And she's what? 90 points?
Yeah. Before any.
Oh, this is if you put Word of the Emperor on her.
If you don't, then she's very cheap.
Yeah, if you don't, she's like cheap. She's like 60 points, right? I think. What is a canoness, Aaron? If you have a quick look, I think she's like 55, and you put a power sword on her.
So she's 50, and then with a power sword she's +5. So without any differences in the things, she's like 55 points, right? Like
she is 55 points, right? You put the Mormon Val buff on her, send her in, and she'll kill half a Terminator brick, which is like a 400-point Terminator brick. She kills half of that, so she's gonna like quadruple her points in one hit. How beast is that? Yep. Right? I think that's absolutely awesome.
Incredible.
So having her as a tool in your army really helps if you want to play a different conviction other than Bloody Rose. And I think if you want to go other than Bloody Rose, then Martyred Lady is the one to go.
Okay.
Personally, in my opinion.
I think that's pretty good. Yeah, I think that's the main thing. Yeah.
Nice. There you have it, guys. So that is Faction Focus Sisters, where they are in the tier right now, why they are doing well in events right now, what order is the best right now, and then if you wanted to play an alternative order and you didn't just want to go Bloody Rose like literally most of the tournament scene are right now, our Martyred Lady is a brilliant one to go for. Do you have any others that you would maybe suggest, Aaron?
So I think in this current, like, with a lot of mortal wounds around and everything like that, you could look at Argent Shroud as well. They do have a strat, which is a 4 up against mortals for 1 CP, which I really like. Plus being able to make a normal move and counter stationary. I know that some people like their Retributor squads. So long as they don't get out of a Rhino, they can move and they can counter making stationary, which is very strong. But I do think that what you get in the other ones is a lot more. But definitely there are things in each of them that you can look at, and actually they have some placing. I don't know, is there any that you like to look at?
No, I think Martyred Lady is the one I'd fall back on if I didn't want to play Bloody Rose.
Yeah,
Bloody Rose is the one to go for.
Yes.
And then if you didn't want to play Bloody Rose just because you don't want to be the same as everyone, Martyred Lady is a great secondary to take. And that's as far as I would go with them, to be honest. I like Martyred Lady. I think they're really cool. They do have, they're not the best, but they have a lot of options that can help them tackle different things and they can put it to help them. So yeah, there you have it, guys. That is Faction Focus Adepta Sororitas for everybody that was requesting it. Hopefully, if you're a Sisters player, you've picked up a few tips there of things that you could go and use in your future games. And if you're a player that plays against Sisters regularly or now faces them in a tournament, hopefully you know some of the things that they can do and why they're so good and have a little bit more of an idea so you don't get caught out by their tricks. So guys, that is the end of this Faction Focus. If you have any suggestions for a Faction Focus you'd like us to cover, please leave them in the comments below in the description and we'll get round to it. Just like we got round to this one.
Oh yeah,
right?
can't wait.
Well, we're all about suggestions and
please.
going for what you guys want. And if you watch this far, guys, and you're enjoying the content, please hit the subscribe button, notifications bell just below Aaron over there, so you know each time we release one of these videos. And if you want more exclusive content, you want amazing discounts off our web store, or if you like what we do here and you'd just like to support the channel, then please head over to glasshammergaming.co.uk and join the elite. And we'll catch you next week with another Faction Focus. Bye guys.
Bye guys.
Live stream Warhammer 40k games, meta-analysis, tournament reports. Hi guys, I'm Manny. I am one of the co-founders of Glasshammer Gaming. I'm one of the current top 5 ranked ITC players in the world, and I play for my international team, Team England, and we are the current reigning world champions. So we started Glasshammer Gaming at the start because we play a very high level, and we realized that a lot of content creators online were more narrative and not really focused on the competitive aspect of the game, and we thought it'd be really cool if we made battle reports, live streams and tactics videos to help players improve in their competitive game, and also for people who are looking to start getting into competitive play, help them along the way and give them some tips. We also have an elite service, and if you join up, you get more in-depth meta-analysis, competitive tournament reports, and even bigger discounts on our store, which are incredible in the first place, and you're basically getting some of the best discounts in the world. If you join up, you also get access to our Discord server, where there are lots of like-minded people who also want to be very competitive and play to the best of their ability, and you'll be added in there with all of them. There are different channels for every army, every faction, so you can talk to other players who play the same armies as you and improve together.